So I got this culture going from about an ounce and a half of this, which is the culture I keep in my fridge and feed once a week to keep it going so that I can build this when I decide I need to bake. Okay, it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm gonna make the starter, the sourdough starter, for 2 loaves of bread, 2 1.5 pound loaves of bread. So this is 4.8 ounces of flour, 6 ounces of water, and I'm going to add 1 ounce of the culture, mix it up, and let it sit overnight, 12 to 16 hours. Alright, there we go, it's mixed up. I'm just going to cover it. And like I said, we'll let it go for 12 to 16 hours. It should be pretty active tomorrow and we'll get the dough going. Alright, it's 9 o'clock in the morning. The starter looks pretty good. So I've got 24 ounces of bread flour in here, 3 ounces of rye, and a tablespoon of table salt, and 15.5 ounces of water. I'm going to mix it all together, and alright, it's all mixed up. It looks real shaggy and it's very sticky, and that's how it's supposed to be. And this is enough dough for 2 1.5 pound loaves or 3 1 pound loaves, whatever you want to do. And now I'm going to cover it up and let it sit for 30 minutes to let the moisture distribute itself amongst all that flour. It's been 30 minutes and it still looks shaggy, but it's still sticky, but it's a lot less sticky than it was 30 minutes ago. So I'm going to take it out of the bowl and put it on here, and I'll show you what I'm going to do in a minute. Now, instead of kneading it, I do what's called folding. So what we do is just take this and stretch it and pull it over four corners. And see, I mean, I know when you first mixed it, it was all over your hands. And now, look how tight it's getting. So I'm going to let this sit. I'm going to clean this bowl out and put just a thin layer of oil in there, and then I'll put the dough in there and let it go an hour. Alright, it's been an hour. It's getting much nicer, getting some strength. So we'll dump it out again. Tools are good. Stretch it. Try not to tear it when you stretch it. I usually do. Alright, pick it up, put it back in there. Another hour. So this is another hour gone by. I've decided I'm going to make 2 1.5 pound loaves, and so we're going to cut it in half here. And I'm going to weigh it just to see if I'm close enough. And that's close enough, so pretty good. Now what I do is to just shape these roughly into a ball. Very lively here. And put it in, I just lightly oiled these plastic things here. Shape this one. And I'm going to put these in the refrigerator overnight. let them kind of slow down and ferment in the fridge. It helps to develop more of the sourdough flavor. And so we'll take it from there tomorrow. The dough has been out of the fridge for about 45 minutes. I let it just warm up a little bit. And now I'm going to shape it into the loaves. And I'm going to put it in these baskets now. And if it's too sticky, just rub a little flour on your hands. But don't add any flour to this. And pat it out, but not flatten it completely. And then fold it into like thirds like this. Tuck it in a little bit on the ends. And then just, close that seam up. And sometimes if you just roll it, you can get that seam tightened up. But you don't want to squash all the air out of the loaf. So that's how I do it. Although if you go to the King Arthur website, they have got really good videos on how to make bread, how to shape it. It's a great site. So, that's one. If you don't have these baskets, you can use a bowl, because you can make round loaves, or you don't need to make oblong loaves. And I dust these cloths with some type of gluten-free flour so they don't stick to the cloth. And then you're going to just take a little regular flour and coat on the bottom, and then put plastic wrap over it and let them rise for a couple hours, and we'll see how that works. It's been about 3 hours that they've been rising. You can see a bit of difference here. And the way to test is to just poke it a little bit, and if it pops out relatively fast, then it's not quite ready, but I think it's getting close. So I'm going to turn on the oven and get it up to temperature, and I use pizza stones in there, and so I like to give it an hour. So I think in about an hour these will be ready to bake. Now if I was using the pizza oven out there, we'd have to have had that going for, burning for 3 hours to get it up to pizza temperature, then let it cool down to do bread. But I don't have any firewood right now, so I'm cooking these in the oven. It's been 4.5 hours since we took the bread out of the fridge, and I use parchment paper to slide these things in the oven on. You just flip it out, take this off carefully. Then I squirt it with water, because in the wood-fired oven there's really no way to put steam in there, and this seems to help. It retards the bread surface from baking right away, and lets it hopefully rise and get a good oven spring. And then you want to cut it. A lot of people use the razor blade. I use the bread knife, and it's just, you try to get a good deep cut and then get it in before it falls off here. That's one. So this is the second one. Put the parchment paper on, put my homemade peel on there, flip it over, spray. Cut it. Get it in the oven. Just to give you a peek, that's what we're starting out with. So here's the loaves. They didn't get the oven spring that I was hoping for, but they're still going to be good bread. And it took about 35 minutes at 460 degrees. Now I'll just let them cool. You want to let them cool completely before you cut them. So there you go.